And a big thanks to those of you who stayed. I said to myself, I'm on last here. Will I be the only person in the room? And that's very close to where we are in local government, isn't it? you know, I don't know about you, but we're facing 50% staff cuts. That's what we're facing at the present time. And it's a very strange place to be in. And my system, which I'm going to talk about, how it was presented to me initially was this would be the last switch which you flick as you leave the room. And I don't know whether it's going to work or not. I don't know whether I'm going to work or not. But let's see. So I apologise for the bizarre accent which David Moody drew attention to earlier. Do you recall David Moody this morning mentioning his accent? Well, it may be a connection because of these things round your neck. Because I have spent all of my life living within sight of the Lagan. And I don't know how many of you know where the Lagan is, but maybe my accent gives it away. It runs through the centre of Belfast and the centre of Lisburn, both of which I've lived in and worked in. So I'm going to try and talk about a different way of looking at things. That's fundamentally what this is about. And I'm also going to draw on what David spoke about earlier. Remember he used 3 words. Can you remember what they were? I'm not asking for you to throw the answers back, but it was the cloud, the crowd, and the web. And I'm going to maybe twist that round in a slightly different way in terms of not something you might have to pay for, but something you may have to consider is, could this help me? So in reality, I don't know how many of you are like this. Because the truth of the matter is, I've sat in a number of workshops during today, and I've heard an awful lot of people saying, we need leadership. Is that a message which you have heard today? We need leadership, and leadership will steer the improvement. Let's get real. Leadership has absolutely no idea how to address the scale and scope of the problems which we are facing today. This is an almighty mess we're in. And somebody used to slip of the tongue earlier and said, we don't need to redesign the Titanic. Well, I would have to remind you, first of all, the Titanic was a success story of Belfast for a few weeks. And then it was an embarrassment for the best part of 100 years. And now it's been reinvented and reclaimed as something which is something of value to the community. Because most people probably don't realise that the Titanic was largely tied in with the sectarian divide of the people who worked on it. It has been a legacy for Northern Ireland, for a very painful legacy for many, many years. But we don't need to reinvent, I would say, the Oceanic, which was the sister ship, which did still sail. We don't really need to do that. But how on earth do we find out what the plans were, and how on earth do we find out what would you do? And I go back to my times whenever I used to work in the City Hall in Belfast. And the most effective conversations I had and the most effective sort of procurement advice I had were what I would describe as being corridor conversations. I don't know whether you're familiar with those corridor conversations. Well, a corridor conversation for me was somebody who came up to me almost in private and said, look, I really haven't a clue. I know I need to get something. I know I need to get this particular problem. I've got myself in a mess. Can you help me? And these people came to me, they thought, Gordon's a very nice bloke. At least I hope some of them said that. But they would have said something to the effect that they didn't mind having a private conversation with me, which illustrated that they were comparatively ignorant of how to get out of the hole. What they didn't want to do was to make this very public. And you had to find a way of helping people. And I don't know about you in that type of situation. When somebody asks you for help, and they perceive you as being the expert in your particular specialism, you're also remarkably vulnerable. So I don't know in the context of how you feel, but I have presented myself for many, many years as somebody who knows about procurement. Now, yesterday I had an email from somebody who said they had been referred to me by somebody who said they knew a procurement guy. I said to myself, this is very odd. So I sent an email back and I said, I think I'm the procurement guy. What is it you want to know? And I said, this is high risk. I have absolutely no idea what question is going to come back, but at least I think I will have the answer. So fortunately for me, it was an absolutely trivial question. It was dead easy to give out. But in our situation today of trying to make, for some councils, 38% savings, where do you start? Now, our position is slightly different. Let's imagine that you had an entirely different tool. So you're sitting in that corridor and you really don't know what you're going to do, how you're going to say it. You don't know what this strategy is going to be. You don't know what this productivity and efficiency strategy might even look like in terms of the first couple of pages. Never mind write what it's going to be like and what are the milestones you're going to be through in the next few months. And the speed of this, the acceleration behind this whole initiative, very, very fast. Now, what we believe is that part of this, part of the solution, part of the tool is something about harnessing all of this knowledge. And I'm mindful of a few minutes ago you said you take good practice and you apply it in other scenarios. Now, the wonderful thing is that we invented the internet some years ago and started to populate it with a whole collection of documents. Has anybody ever found it easy to find those documents? All of that knowledge which has been accumulated. Now, I find it a torture. And last year we spent a reasonable period of time looking through all of the web resources which the local government group had created relating to efficiency. And I don't know if any of you looked at our website at that particular time, but I would suggest that you could find nothing of any meaningful use. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack, where you search for something and it was fortuitous if you came across it. But let's visualize that we could create some method of bringing all that knowledge together. Let's visualize that this was a giant discussion of what we have got here, the collective knowledge of the people in this room, and amplify that many, many times, the collective knowledge of what's in the local government and the public sector community. If we were to bring all of that knowledge together, we might be able to make it easy to solve the problems which we're encountering. In fact, for many of those situations, we may have already solved the problems. We just need to transfer it into a slightly different place, or a slightly different context, or a slightly different environment, or do it slightly faster. Imagine that you had that type of resource. Now, the way in which I would present that to my kids would be, visualize the way you talk on Facebook. You put your pictures up. You talk to somebody about, is this a good film worth going to? And somebody comes back and says it was absolute rubbish. The Times give it a 2. We give it a 4 or whatever. The Times give it a 4 and we give it a 2. If you could get that knowledge before you decide to walk into a shop, or if you get that knowledge before you decide to go into a film, what about if you could get that knowledge before you embarked upon a strategy which hopefully was going to save you some money? Now, imagine that library which was chaotic, which IDA ran. That's nothing. I haven't used change to IDA just because I've talked about something which was chaotic. I've talked about it because that's where the website was. Now, visualize that I couldn't find the documents. Quite a few of those documents were actually my documents. How on earth can you find them when you want? And what we did is we looked through all of the themes which were being identified by Capital Ambition at that stage as the themes which were important within the efficiency agenda. And we then married up all of these documents. We refreshed quite a few of them. And we went back and said, if somebody was trying to address that particular problem, could they find a document which married up with that? And then because we couldn't find some documents, we were able to catalogue quite a bit of it, refresh quite a bit of it. We went back to the REAPs and we took some documents from them. And we're now fairly happy that we've got a reasonably comprehensive library, which is tagged. Now, we'll come back to tagging later. It's not that kids' game where you play in the playground, you rush over and hit somebody, and then you run away. This is a bit more proactive and helpful. But visualize a library which had access to every document which anybody might have which is related to efficiency. And it's not just the documents in London. It's not just the documents in England. It's not just the documents in the UK or Europe. It's anywhere in the world which might be relevant to us solving the problem.